The timeless wisdom of ancient philosophy. How 2,500 years of thought can change your life. Zeno's shipwreck and the birth of Stoicism. A twist of fate. How a shipwreck created a philosophy. The Mediterranean Sea, 2,300 years ago. The waves roared, the winds howled, and the wooden hull of a merchant ship groaned under the pressure of an unforgiving storm. On board stood Zeno of Citium, a wealthy Phoenician merchant from Cyprus, watching in horror as his life's work, his cargo, his wealth, his future, was swallowed by the sea. As the ship shattered against the rocky shores near Athens, Zeno barely managed to escape with his life. The wreckage was absolute. He had lost everything except for the clothes on his back and the burning question in his mind. What now? A man with nothing walks into a bookstore. In Athens, Zeno wandered the streets, a man stripped of everything, except his own thoughts. One day, he found himself inside a small bookstore, the kind where scrolls were stacked to the ceiling, where the scent of old parchment filled the air. His eyes fell upon a passage describing the life and teachings of Socrates, the man who had lived with nothing, feared nothing, and questioned everything. Zeno, intrigued, asked the bookseller, "Where can I find men like this?" The bookseller pointed down the street toward a colonnade bustling with conversation and debate. The place was known as the Stoa Poikile, the painted porch. And there, a group of philosophers gathered, discussing the nature of virtue, control, and resilience. From tragedy to philosophy, the making of a Stoic inspired, Zeno became a student of these great thinkers. He studied under Crates of Thebes, a notorious cynic who taught by example, living in poverty, rejecting luxury, and ridiculing societal norms. Crates once instructed Zeno to carry a pot of lentil soup through the streets of Athens. When Zeno hesitated, embarrassed, Crates smashed the pot, spilling the soup all over him. "Why are you ashamed?" he asked. "It's just lentil soup." Through lessons like these, Zeno learned that material wealth was an illusion, that true strength came from within. But unlike Crates, he believed in a more structured, disciplined approach to life, one that balanced reason, ethics, and self-control. And so, standing in the very place where he first encountered philosophy, he began teaching his own ideas to a growing group of students. This philosophy became known as Stoicism, named after the Stoa, where it was first taught. The core of Stoicism. Strength. Through adversity, Zeno's philosophy was shaped by hardship. He had lost everything, yet he had gained something greater, wisdom. From his own experience, he developed the foundation of Stoicism. Control what you can, accept what you can't. The storm took his wealth, but not his mind. A Stoic focuses only on what is within their power, their actions, their judgments, and their response to life's events. Virtue is the only true good. Wealth, health, and status can be taken away in an instant. The only thing that truly matters is living virtuously, with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Pain and misfortune are teachers. Zeno's greatest lesson came from his greatest loss. Adversity is not something to fear. It is an opportunity to grow stronger. Live in agreement with nature. Life follows its course, whether we like it or not. A Stoic does not resist the inevitable, but embraces it, adapting and thriving within the natural order. Real-life parallels. How Zeno's teachings live. On Zeno's journey isn't just an ancient story, it's a universal one. Even today, people face their own shipwrecks, a lost job, a broken relationship, a financial collapse. And like Zeno, they must decide how to respond. Take Viktor Frankl, for example, A psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, Frankl endured unimaginable suffering in Nazi concentration camps. Yet, from his experience, he developed logotherapy, a philosophy emphasizing that even in the worst conditions, we have the power to choose our response. His famous words echo Stoicism perfectly. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Or consider James Stockdale, a US Navy pilot shot down and captured during the Vietnam War. Tortured and imprisoned for over 7 years, he turned to Stoicism for strength, famously repeating Epictetus's words, "You cannot control external events, but you can control your own mind." Stockdale credited Stoicism with his survival, the modern Stoic, applying Zeno's wisdom. Today, Zeno's shipwreck isn't just history, it's a metaphor for the struggles we all face. So how can we apply his lessons to modern life? Redefining. Failure. Too often, we see failure as an end rather than a beginning. If Zeno had given up after losing his wealth, Stoicism would never have been born. Instead, he transformed his misfortune into a path of wisdom. Actionable takeaway. The next time you face a setback, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I turn this into an opportunity? Reframe failure as a lesson, not a loss. Mastering the dichotomy of control, Zeno learned the hard way that no amount of money could stop a storm, but he could control how he responded to it. Today, we stress over things beyond our control. Traffic, stock market crashes, what others think of us. Actionable takeaway. Make a 2-column list. On the left, write things you can control, your actions, your thoughts, your effort. On the right, things you can't, the economy, other people's opinions, the past. Then, focus only on the left column. Building inner wealth. Zeno lost his fortune, but he gained wisdom, a wealth that could never be taken from him. In an age obsessed with material success, Stoicism reminds us that true wealth lies in character and resilience. Actionable takeaway. Each day, ask yourself, am I focusing on external success, or am I cultivating inner strength? Prioritize self-improvement over status. The legacy of a shipwrecked Zeno never reclaimed his lost fortune. He never returned to his life as a merchant, but his teachings outlived him, influencing some of history's greatest minds: Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius. Even today, Stoicism is practiced by entrepreneurs, athletes, soldiers, and anyone seeking to navigate life's chaos with wisdom and resilience. Zeno himself once said, "I made a prosperous voyage when I suffered shipwreck." His greatest loss became the seed of his greatest wisdom, and perhaps the same can be true for us. Every setback, every failure, every storm, we can see them as endings or as beginnings. The choice is ours. Socrates and Plato, the minds that shaped civilization before the rise of Stoicism, before Marcus Aurelius scrawled his thoughts in secret, before Seneca pondered life and death under the shadow of Nero's paranoia, there was Socrates, a man so disruptive, so relentlessly curious, that his own city sentenced him to death for the crime of thinking too much. This is the story of a philosopher who never wrote a single word yet changed the world, and of his student Plato, who took those ideas and built the foundation of Western thought. Their teachings didn't just survive time, they defined what it means to question, to learn, and to seek truth beyond appearances. Socrates, the gadfly of Athens. Socrates was a problem. Not because he stole, fought wars, or plotted rebellion, but because he asked questions, too many of them. He wandered the streets of Athens, barefoot and unwashed, stopping merchants, soldiers, politicians, and poets to engage in conversation. But these weren't friendly chats. They were relentless interrogations that often left his conversation partners humiliated, frustrated, or existentially disturbed. Imagine you're an Athenian statesman, respected and admired. You've just given a speech on justice. The people cheer. Then Socrates steps forward, his eyes twinkling with curiosity, and asks, "But what is justice?" You answer confidently, "Justice is following the law." Socrates nods thoughtfully. "But what if the law is unjust?" You frown. "Then it's not true justice." He leans in. "Then justice must be something deeper than just lawfulness. So, what is justice really?" By now, the crowd is watching. Your confident stance starts to falter. Socrates keeps pressing, peeling back layers, exposing contradictions, until you're left admitting you don't actually know. This method of questioning, now called the Socratic method, became the foundation of critical thinking, law, education, and scientific inquiry. It was, in essence, the first formalized approach to skepticism and intellectual humility. But Socrates' relentless questioning wasn't just an academic exercise. He believed that true wisdom began with realizing one's own ignorance. "I know that I know nothing," he famously declared. He wasn't claiming to be stupid. He was acknowledging that most people pretend to know far more than they actually do. This was dangerous. Socrates made powerful enemies, exposing the ignorance of politicians and the vanity of poets. They accused him of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods. The punishment? Death. The trial of Socrates. Death for a philosopher. Imagine a packed Athenian courtroom in 399 BCE. The philosopher stands trial, accused of undermining the state. His students watch anxiously. One of them, a young man named Plato, listens carefully, absorbing every word. The charges are absurd. Socrates has questioned authority, inspired young minds to think independently, and dared to claim that human wisdom is limited. He is given a choice: stop teaching, leave Athens, or die. His friends plead with him to escape. He refuses. "If I ran away, what would that teach my students? That philosophy is only valuable when it's convenient?" So he accepts his fate. He drinks the poison hemlock, his body slowly succumbing to paralysis. His final words, "Crito, we owe a rooster to Asclepius. Pay the debt." Even in death, Socrates remains enigmatic. Was he thanking the gods for curing him of life? Or was this one last riddle for his students to unravel? Whatever the answer, his ideas lived on through Plato. Plato, the philosopher who built a world, Plato, was more than just a student of Socrates. He was a visionary, a writer, and the first true system builder of Western philosophy. If Socrates was the gadfly who provoked, Plato was the architect who constructed. He took the lessons of his mentor and expanded them into grand theories about reality, society, and human nature. His writings, preserved in a collection of dialogues, introduced one of the most famous philosophical ideas of all time, the allegory of the cave. The cave. Are we living in shadows? Imagine prisoners chained in a cave since birth. Their only view of the world is shadows cast on the wall by a fire behind them. They believe these shadows are reality. One prisoner escapes. He stumbles outside, blinded by the sun. At first, he resists. It's painful, unfamiliar. But as his eyes adjust, he realizes the truth. The world is vast, colorful, real. He returns to free his fellow prisoners, but they mock him. Some even grow violent. To them, the shadows are the only truth. This is Plato's warning. Are we mistaking illusions for reality? In the modern world, this idea feels even more relevant. Social media, algorithms, propaganda. Are we trapped in digital caves, mistaking carefully curated feeds for truth? If someone showed us reality, would we accept it or fight to stay comfortable in the dark? Plato's allegory wasn't just an abstract thought experiment. It was a call to action. Seek truth, even when it's difficult. Plato's Republic, a blueprint for society. Plato wasn't just interested in personal wisdom, he wanted to build a better world. In the Republic, he laid out his vision of an ideal society. He divided people into three classes: the producers, farmers, artisans, workers; the guardians, the military, and enforcers; the philosopher kings, rulers chosen for their wisdom, not wealth or power. The idea: a society should be led by those who seek truth, not personal gain. Sound radical? Maybe. But consider today's political landscape. Would we be better off if leaders were philosophers instead of populists? Of course, Plato's ideas weren't perfect. His vision of an ideal society involved strict social classes, censorship, and even eugenics. But his central idea, that wisdom should guide leadership, still resonates. Socrates and Plato. The legacy. Socrates died for his ideas. Plato immortalized them. Together, they changed the way humanity thinks. Their influence is everywhere. Education. The Socratic method is still used in law schools, philosophy classes, and critical thinking exercises. Science. Plato's emphasis on questioning appearances inspired the pursuit of deeper truths, leading to the birth of empirical science. Psychology. His concept of reality versus illusion laid the groundwork for understanding cognitive biases and perception, and they paved the way for Stoicism. Without Socrates, there is no questioning of assumptions. Without Plato, there is no structured exploration of philosophy. Without them, Zeno, the shipwrecked merchant, might never have wandered into that bookstore and discovered the ideas that would become Stoicism. The ultimate question: are you still in the cave? Think about your own life. Are there shadows you've mistaken for truth? Have you ever been challenged to rethink your beliefs? And when faced with an uncomfortable reality, do you fight it or embrace it? This is what philosophy is about, not just ideas, but action. So what's your next step? Stay in the cave or step into the light? Stoicism, the philosophy of resilience. The birth of a philosophy that would endure empires. Imagine being born into slavery, your life dictated by another's whims, or ruling the most powerful empire in history while fighting plagues and wars. Or perhaps advising a mad emperor, knowing that one wrong move could mean your death. These were the lives of Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, the three great minds who shaped Stoicism, a philosophy forged in hardship and designed for endurance. But what exactly is Stoicism? Many mistake it for passive resignation, picturing an emotionless man staring into the abyss, accepting all misfortunes without reaction. In truth, Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions. It's about mastering them. It's about mental fortitude, resilience, and control over one's mind, especially when faced with adversity. This philosophy, born from hardship, has found its way into military training, therapy sessions, and boardroom strategies. Its wisdom has been embraced by Roman gladiators, Buddhist monks, and modern-day CEOs alike. And why? Because life has always been unpredictable, difficult, and unfair. But instead of complaining, the Stoics gave us a way to navigate it with strength. The Stoic Trinity, the three masters of resilience. If Stoicism had a Mount Rushmore, three faces would be carved into the rock: Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. Each had a different life, but together they built a mental framework that would outlast empires. Epictetus. The slave who became a master. Epictetus never owned his freedom, yet his mind was the freest of all. Born into slavery, he was owned by a Roman bureaucrat who, according to legend, once twisted his leg just to see if it would break. It did. And Epictetus, with calm resolve, simply said, "I told you it would break." That moment captures the essence of his philosophy. You cannot control what happens to you. You can only control how you respond. When he was finally freed, Epictetus dedicated his life to teaching others how to cultivate an unshakable mind. His greatest lesson? You are not your circumstances. You are not your suffering. You are the way you think about them. This idea still echoes in modern therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which teaches patients how to reframe negative thoughts to gain control over their emotions. Think about it. Have you ever been stuck in traffic, fuming with frustration as though your anger could move the cars? Epictetus would ask, why waste your energy on something outside your control? 2. Seneca, the philosopher of power and danger. Seneca was a man of contradictions. He was a brilliant philosopher, yet he served as an advisor to Nero, one of Rome's most notorious emperors. He preached simplicity, yet he was immensely wealthy. Some call him a hypocrite. Others see him as proof that Stoicism is not about abandoning the world, but surviving it. Seneca believed that we must prepare ourselves for life's worst moments before they arrive. He practiced premeditatio malorum, the act of imagining disaster before it happens. He would write about losing his wealth, being exiled, or facing death, so that if any of those things occurred, he would not be caught off guard. This technique is now used by elite athletes, military personnel, and business leaders. Before stepping into a high-stakes situation, they visualize the worst that could happen. That way, when reality strikes, they are already mentally prepared. Ever worried about an upcoming job interview, a tough exam, or a risky investment? Try this. Visualize the absolute worst outcome. Imagine failing completely. Now ask yourself, could you survive it? If the answer is yes, then suddenly the fear loses its power over you. 3. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who kept a private journal. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man on earth in his time. He ruled Rome during wars, plagues, and political betrayals. Yet at night, he did not write speeches for the Senate or battle plans for his generals. Instead, he wrote to himself. These writings, later compiled as meditations, were never meant to be published. They were personal reminders to stay humble, stay strong, and focus only on what he could control. One of his most famous lines, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that. How often do we waste energy complaining about things we cannot change? The weather, the economy, someone else's opinion of us. But Marcus teaches us, your mind is the only kingdom you truly rule. Defend it well. The Stoic superpowers. Mental tools for a stronger life. Stoicism is more than philosophy. It's a practical toolkit. These techniques can help you build resilience and mental toughness in any situation. The dichotomy of control. The ultimate mental filter. Epictetus' greatest insight was simple. Some things are within your control, some things are not. Focus only on the first example. In your control, your actions, your thoughts, your responses. Not in your control, the economy, the weather, other people's opinions. Modern example, an athlete who loses a match doesn't focus on the referee's bad calls. He focuses on how he'll train better next time. This mindset shift is powerful. It saves you from stress over things you can't change. Amor fati, loving your fate no matter what. The phrase amor fati means love your fate. Not just accept it, love it. The Stoics didn't merely tolerate hardship, they embraced it as fuel. Example, you lose your job. A Stoic doesn't sulk. He says, good, this is an opportunity to grow, to learn, to adapt. This mindset is used by Navy SEALs and world-class entrepreneurs. They see setbacks as stepping stones. Memento mori, the reminder that changes everything. Memento mori means remember you will die. Sounds morbid? The opposite. It's liberating. Knowing that life is short makes you waste less time on meaningless things. Steve Jobs once said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the best tool I've ever encountered to make big decisions." This is memento mori in action. Next time you hesitate on a dream, ask, "If I died tomorrow, would I regret not doing this?" If the answer is yes, go do it. Why Stoicism still matters today. Why is this ancient philosophy still alive today? Because life hasn't changed. Your boss insults you, that's a modern version of Seneca dealing with Nero. Your business fails. Marcus Aurelius saw Rome collapse in war, yet he stayed calm. You feel overwhelmed by problems. Epictetus, a former slave, would remind you, you are stronger than your circumstances. That's why today, Stoicism is used in therapy, military training, and even Silicon Valley. Leaders like Tim Ferriss, Ryan Holiday, and Jeff Bezos apply Stoic principles to decision-making. Your Stoic challenge: live it, don't just read it. Philosophy isn't meant to be read, it's meant to be lived. So here's your challenge. Start your morning with a Stoic reflection. Ask, what is in my control today? Write down your answer. Try premeditatio malorum. Visualize a bad day ahead. Would you survive it? Spoiler, yes. Tree. Practice amor fati. Next time something bad happens, say good. Use it as training. Test these ideas this week. Then ask yourself, did they change how you think? Because the real goal of philosophy isn't knowledge, it's transformation. Coming up next, Epicureanism versus Stoicism. Now that we've mastered resilience, let's explore a different perspective. Epicureanism. Could happiness lie in peace instead of struggle? Stay tuned. That's the full section on Stoicism, the philosophy of resilience. Let me know if you want refinements or if you're ready for Epicureanism versus Stoicism. 02, you said ready, go chat GPT. Said great. Now let's dive into the Epicureanism versus Stoicism debate, two schools of thought that shaped ancient philosophy in dramatically different ways. Epicureanism versus Stoicism, pleasure or resilience. The clash of philosophies, two paths to the good life. Imagine two philosophers walking through ancient Athens, deep in discussion about how to live the best life. One of them, Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, argues that life is filled with hardships. He insists that to achieve happiness, one must develop self-discipline, mental resilience, and mastery over emotions. He believes suffering is inevitable, and the key to life is controlling how we react to it. The other, Epicurus, founder of Epicureanism, smiles calmly and shakes his head. He believes that happiness comes not from enduring suffering, but from avoiding unnecessary pain and seeking pleasure. Simple, natural pleasures. These two men represent the great philosophical divide between Stoicism and Epicureanism. Both aim for happiness, but they take opposite paths to get there. Which one is right? And more importantly, which one is right for you? Who was Epicurus? The philosopher of peaceful pleasure Epicurus was born in 341 BCE on the island of Samos. Unlike the Stoics, who focused on enduring hardships, Epicurus believed that pleasure was the greatest good in life. However, his idea of pleasure was not reckless indulgence, but rather a calm, contented existence free from pain, fear, and anxiety. Epicurus's formula for happiness: seek simple pleasures. Enjoy food, friendship, and meaningful conversations rather than material wealth or power. Avoid unnecessary pain. Don't chase fame, fortune, or politics. These bring stress and suffering. Eliminate fear. Death is nothing to fear. It is simply the end of sensation. Unlike later hedonists who pursued luxury and excess, Epicurus promoted a moderate, peaceful life, focused on self-sufficiency and inner peace. He and his followers lived in the garden, a quiet retreat where they enjoyed simple food, deep discussions, and a stress-free life. To Epicurus, happiness wasn't about enduring suffering like the Stoics. It was about minimizing suffering altogether. Who were the Stoics? The philosophers of resilience. Meanwhile, the Stoics believed that life was full of hardships, and the only way to achieve true peace was to embrace suffering and cultivate mental strength. They taught that we must accept what we cannot control, too. Pain and suffering are opportunities for growth. Virtue, not pleasure, is the highest good. While Epicurus sought to avoid unnecessary pain, the Stoics believed that pain was a necessary part of life, and that embracing it built character. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." To a Stoic, happiness is not found in pleasure, but in mastering your own mind. Stoicism versus Epicureanism. The great debate. So, which philosophy is better? Let's compare them. Category: Stoicism, Epicureanism. Happiness is mastering emotions, eliminating pain, biggest enemy, emotional weakness, unnecessary desires, attitude toward pain, embrace and grow from it. Avoid it when possible. Attitude toward pleasure, not the goal, but okay. In moderation, essential for a good life. Fear of death, accept it as natural. No fear. Death is nothing, role of virtue. The highest goal. Good, but not required for happiness. Life-focused duty, resilience and self-discipline, peace, friendship and simple living. At first glance, Stoicism seems harsh and demanding, while Epicureanism sounds easy and peaceful. But is it really that simple? Modern Stoics versus modern Epicureans. Who are you? Imagine two friends, Alex and Ben. Alex follows Stoicism. He wakes up early, takes cold showers, pushes himself through hard workouts, and thrives under pressure. If something goes wrong at work, he doesn't complain, he adapts. He believes that discipline equals freedom. Ben follows Epicureanism. He values simple pleasures, good food, relaxing walks, deep conversations. He avoids toxic stress, chooses work that brings him joy, and believes that happiness is found in peaceful living, not struggle. Both men are happy, but they've chosen different paths. Which one sounds more like you? The ideal balance, the best of both worlds. The truth is, you don't have to choose just one. Many successful people blend Stoicism and Epicureanism to create a balanced philosophy. Stoicism teaches us how to endure hardships. When life throws challenges at us, we need discipline, resilience, and mental strength. Epicureanism teaches us how to enjoy life. When life is good, we should appreciate friendship, laughter, and simple pleasures. Example: a CEO might use Stoicism to handle business failures and Epicureanism to enjoy vacations with family. A soldier might train with Stoic discipline but unwind with Epicurean simplicity. A writer might accept Stoic hardship during creative blocks but embrace Epicurean pleasure when finishing a great book. The key is knowing when to endure and when to enjoy. The final verdict: which one should you follow? Choose Stoicism. If you want to be mentally tough and resilient, you thrive under pressure and believe in self-discipline, you're willing to endure hardship for long-term success. Choose Epicureanism if you want a life free from stress and anxiety. You believe happiness comes from peace, not struggle. You prefer simple joys over ambition and power. Or, better yet, follow both. Life isn't just suffering or just pleasure, it's both. The wisest people know when to fight and when to relax. If Stoicism is your shield, then Epicureanism is your oasis. Final thought, your challenge for the week. Want to test both philosophies? Try this challenge. Monday, Wednesday, live like a Stoic. Wake up early, take cold showers, avoid complaining and push yourself. Accept hardships with strength. Thursday, Saturday, live like an Epicurean. Savor good food, spend time with friends, and avoid unnecessary stress. Find joy in simplicity. Sunday, reflect. Which philosophy made you happier? Could you blend both into your life? Let me know which one resonates with you. Existentialism, the philosophy of freedom and meaning imagined. Waking up one day to realize that the universe has no inherent purpose, no divine script guiding your actions, and no grand destiny waiting for you. Would you feel liberated or terrified? And now, what does it mean to exist? If life has no predefined purpose, how do we create our own meaning? How can we truly be free in a world that often feels indifferent or absurd? Unlike Stoicism, which seeks inner control, or Platonism, which believes in higher ideals, existentialism forces us to confront a raw and often uncomfortable truth, that we are alone in a universe that does not care about us. But far from being a philosophy of despair, existentialism is a call to action, an invitation to embrace radical freedom and take responsibility for our choices. To understand this bold and often misunderstood philosophy, let's begin where it all started. The 19th century thinkers who first questioned the nature of existence itself. Or the birth of existentialism. From rebellion to freedom, Søren Kierkegaard, the father of existentialism. In the mid-1800s, a Danish philosopher named Søren Kierkegaard walked the streets of Copenhagen, wrestling with a crisis of faith. Unlike the rational philosophers of his time, Kierkegaard believed that reason alone could not explain human existence. He asked, what happens when we realize life has no guarantees? What do we do when logic and science fail to give us meaning? How do we live authentically in a world that pressures us to conform? Kierkegaard believed that most people live in a state of distraction, avoiding the terrifying question of their own existence. He called this avoidance despair, not in the sense of sadness, but in the sense of not truly being yourself. His solution, the leap of faith. To Kierkegaard, true meaning is not found in logic or social norms, but in an individual, passionate commitment to something greater, whether it be faith, art, love, or personal truth. This idea laid the groundwork for existentialism, influencing later thinkers who would explore human freedom, anxiety, and the struggle for authenticity. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher, who declared God is dead. If Kierkegaard believed in a personal leap of faith, Friedrich Nietzsche went in the opposite direction. Nietzsche looked at Western society and saw a world built on outdated religious and moral structures. He believed that traditional ideas of good, evil, and divine purpose were illusions created to control people. His famous phrase, "God is dead," wasn't an attack on religion itself. It was a declaration that humanity had outgrown traditional moral beliefs. But this created a crisis. Without God, where does morality come from? Nietzsche's answer, the will to power. He believed that individuals must create their own values and embrace their own strength rather than blindly following society's rules. He introduced the idea of the Übermensch, overman, or Superman, a person who transcends societal norms and creates their own path. Nietzsche's ideas were radical, and they remain controversial today. But one thing is certain: his philosophy forces us to ask, are we living according to our own values, or are we simply following the herd? The 20th century existentialists. From war to rebellion, the existentialist movement exploded in the 20th century, shaped by 2 world wars, political revolutions, and growing skepticism about traditional beliefs. While each thinker had their own unique perspective, they all shared one belief: life has no inherent meaning, so we must create our own. Jean-Paul Sartre, Radical Freedom and Responsibility. Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the most famous existentialists, was a French philosopher and writer who lived through World War II. Seeing the horrors of war and oppression, Sartre asked, "If God does not exist, and if life has no given meaning, what are we left with?" His answer? Radical freedom. To Sartre, humans are condemned to be free. This means there is no higher power dictating our fate. We alone are responsible for our choices. Every decision defines who we are. But freedom comes with a cost: anxiety. When we realize that our life is in our own hands, the weight of that responsibility can feel overwhelming. Sartre called this feeling existential angst. To escape this anxiety, most people engage in bad faith, pretending they are not free and simply following society's expectations. Sartre urged people to embrace their freedom and take full responsibility for shaping their own lives. Albert Camus, the absurd hero. Albert Camus, another French existentialist, took the philosophy in a different direction. He introduced absurdism, the idea that life is fundamentally meaningless, yet humans desperately search for meaning. This creates a contradiction. We want life to make sense. The universe is indifferent. Camus used the myth of Sisyphus, a Greek king cursed to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, as a metaphor for human existence. If life is just an endless cycle of struggle, is there any point to it? Camus' answer: yes, if we embrace the absurd. Instead of seeking ultimate meaning, we should rebel against meaninglessness by fully engaging with life, finding joy in art, relationships, adventure, and self-expression. The struggle itself is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Camus' message is simple: we don't need cosmic meaning. We create our own meaning through how we live. To key existentialist themes, how they apply to us today. Radical freedom, no one can define you. Existentialism teaches that we are not bound by our past, our culture, or any predetermined script. Every moment is an opportunity to redefine who we are. Hate your job? Change it. Stuck in a routine? Break free. Afraid of failure? Accept the risk. Many people avoid freedom because it comes with responsibility. But existentialists argue that true fulfillment comes when we embrace our power to choose. 2. Living authentically. Are you true to yourself? Society pressures us to conform. We are told how to behave, what success looks like, and what we should value. But existentialists ask, are you living for yourself or for others? If you removed societal expectations, what would you truly want? Are your beliefs really your own, or were they handed to you? Are you choosing your life, or is life choosing for you? To live authentically means aligning your actions with your deepest values, even if it means going against the crowd. 3. Finding meaning in an indifferent universe. One of the biggest existentialist lessons is that meaning is not given, it is created. There is no universal purpose. But that doesn't mean your life can't have purpose. Love can be your purpose. Creativity can be your purpose. Seeking knowledge can be your purpose. Even embracing life's struggles can be your purpose. Existentialism challenges us to stop searching for external validation and start crafting our own meaning, one that resonates deeply with who we are. Final thoughts. The existentialist challenge. Existentialism is not a comfortable philosophy. It does not offer easy answers, but it provides something far more powerful. The realization that you are the architect of your own existence. So the challenge is this: will you embrace your freedom and create your own meaning? Or will you continue living by someone else's script? Postmodernism, the philosophy of questioning reality. Imagine living in a world where everything you believe, history, truth, morality, even reality itself, might just be a social construct. What if everything you were taught was simply one version of the truth, shaped by power, culture, and language? This is the foundation of postmodernism, a philosophical movement that emerged in the 20th century as a response to modernist ideals of progress, objectivity, and absolute truth. Postmodern thinkers question everything, from history to science, and argue that our understanding of the world is shaped not by objective facts, but by perspectives, biases, and hidden power structures. If existentialism was about the struggle to create meaning in an absurd world, postmodernism takes it a step further, asking if meaning even exists in the first place. Of the birth of postmodernism, questioning truth and power, the collapse of modernist optimism. Before diving into postmodernism, it's important to understand what it was reacting against. Modernism, modernist thinkers such as Descartes, Kant, and the Enlightenment philosophers believed in progress. Society is moving toward a better future. Reason. Humans can discover objective truths through science and logic. Universal truth. Certain things, like morality, justice, and history, exist independently of individual perception. But as the 20th century unfolded, people began to question these ideals. 2 world wars, the rise of totalitarian regimes, the horrors of the Holocaust, and the development of nuclear weapons shattered the belief in progress and human reason. People asked, if humans are so rational, why do they keep destroying each other? If science brings progress, why does it also bring war and oppression? If history is factual, why does it always seem to be written by the victors? These doubts gave birth to postmodern philosophy, which rejected the idea of absolute truth and instead argued that truth is shaped by language, culture, and power structures. Key postmodern thinkers. Deconstructing reality. Friedrich Nietzsche, the early critic of objective truth. Although Nietzsche was not a postmodernist, his ideas heavily influenced postmodern thought. We already explored his famous claim, God is dead. But Nietzsche also argued that truth is not an objective reality, but a human invention, shaped by language and historical context. What we call truth is simply the dominant perspective of those in power. Morality is not universal, but a tool used by societies to control people. History is a series of narratives, not an unbiased record of the past. Nietzsche's radical skepticism inspired postmodernists, who took his ideas even further. Jacques Derrida, The Art of Deconstruction. One of the most famous postmodern thinkers, Jacques Derrida introduced the idea of deconstruction, the process of breaking apart texts, ideas, and cultural beliefs to reveal their hidden biases and contradictions. He argued that language is not neutral. It shapes how we see reality. Words do not have fixed meanings. Their meaning depends on context and interpretation. All knowledge is constructed. There is no absolute truth, only competing narratives. Derrida's deconstructionist approach influenced fields like literature, politics, and philosophy, leading people to question whether any text, belief system, or institution could ever be truly objective. Michel Foucault, Power and Knowledge. If Derrida focused on language, Michel Foucault focused on power. Foucault believed that knowledge and truth are not discovered. They are created by those in power. He argued that history is shaped by the winners, while alternative perspectives are erased. Science, medicine, and institutions claim to be objective, but often serve the interests of those in control. Society uses labels, e.g., madness, criminality, normalcy, to control behavior. One of his most famous concepts is the panopticon, a metaphor for how power works in modern society. In a panopticon prison, a central guard tower watches over prisoners, but the prisoners never know exactly when they're being watched. This creates self-discipline. People follow the rules, not because they believe in them, but because they fear being monitored. Foucault argued that modern society functions the same way. We internalize social rules, expectations, and norms, controlling ourselves even when no one is watching. Jean Baudrillard, The Illusion of Reality. If Foucault and Derrida argued that truth and power shape society, Jean Baudrillard took it to the extreme, questioning if reality itself even exists anymore. He introduced the idea of simulacra and simulation, arguing that we no longer experience reality directly, only its representations, TV, social media, advertisements. We live in a world of hyper-reality, where images and symbols have replaced real experiences. Modern culture is like a simulation, where what we think is real is actually just a constructed illusion. His ideas are more relevant today than ever. In the world dominated by social media, fake news, virtual reality, and AI-generated content, Baudrillard's warnings about losing touch with reality feel eerily accurate. Key themes of postmodernism. How it affects us today. Truth is not absolute, it is constructed. Postmodernism argues that truth is not something we discover, it is something we create based on language, culture, and power structures. History is told from the perspective of those in power. Science and facts can be shaped by political or economic interests. Even concepts like morality and identity are influenced by society. In an era of fake news, media manipulation, and political bias, this perspective is more relevant than ever. 2. Language shapes reality. Derrida's ideas about language suggest that words do not just describe reality, they create it. How we label things, e.g., terrorist versus freedom fighter, changes how we perceive them. The way the media frames a story can influence what people believe. Different cultures have different ways of categorizing and understanding the world. Postmodernism reminds us to question language and interpretation, not just take things at face value. 3. Power is everywhere. Even in everyday life, Foucault's work on power shows that control is not just about laws or governments. It is woven into everyday life. Schools, workplaces, and social norms teach us how to behave. Surveillance, from CCTV to online tracking, affects our choices. Social pressure makes us conform, even without direct force. Postmodernism challenges us to examine who benefits from the rules and norms we follow. 4. Reality is a simulation. Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality is more relevant today than ever. Social media creates curated realities that distort our perceptions. AI and digital influences blur the line between real and artificial. News and entertainment often blend together, making it hard to tell facts from fiction. Postmodernism urges us to ask, are we experiencing reality or just an illusion of it? Final thoughts. The postmodern dilemma. Postmodernism does not offer easy answers. Instead, it challenges us to question everything, including history, science, morality, and truth. Recognize how power and language shape our beliefs. Stay skeptical of anyone who claims to have the ultimate truth. But postmodernism also presents a paradox. If all truth is relative, then can we ever be sure of anything? Some critics argue that postmodern skepticism leads to nihilism, where nothing has meaning. Others say it encourages intellectual laziness, where people reject facts simply because they're inconvenient. But perhaps the real value of postmodernism is this: it teaches us to question the world around us. In an era of information overload, propaganda, and digital deception, this skill has never been more important. Aristotle. The first life coach of Socrates was the gadfly who challenged people to question their beliefs, and Plato was the idealist who imagined a world of perfect forms. Then Aristotle was the ultimate realist, a man grounded in logic, observation, and practical wisdom. Aristotle was not just a philosopher, he was the first true life coach in history. His teachings covered ethics, happiness, success, self-improvement, and personal growth, topics that continue to shape modern psychology, self-help, and leadership training today. His philosophy was not about abstract theories, but about how to live a fulfilled and meaningful life. He believed that true happiness was not about fleeting pleasure, but about achieving excellence through daily habits and virtues. In this section, we'll explore Aristotle's background and influences, his practical approach to philosophy, his famous concept of eudaimonia, the ultimate form of happiness, how Aristotle's virtue ethics still apply today, his influence on modern psychology and self-development. Let's dive into the wisdom of history's first great life coach. Who was Aristotle? The philosopher of practical wisdom, a student of Plato, a teacher of Alexander the Great. Aristotle was born in 384 BCE in Stagira, Greece. At the age of 17, he moved to Athens to study at Plato's academy, where he spent 20 years learning from the great philosopher. However, unlike Plato, who focused on abstract ideals, Aristotle was deeply interested in the physical world and human behavior. Plato believed in a world of perfect forms, where everything on earth was just an imperfect copy. Aristotle rejected this. He believed that truth comes from observing reality itself. This practical mindset would shape all of his teachings. Later, Aristotle became the tutor of Alexander the Great, the future conqueror of the known world. His influence on Alexander would shape history, blending Greek philosophy with leadership and empire building. After tutoring Alexander, Aristotle returned to Athens and founded his own school, the Lyceum, where he taught and wrote about everything, from science to politics, ethics to psychology. His vast knowledge and practical approach to life made him one of the most influential thinkers in history. The goal of life, eudaimonia, true happiness. What is eudaimonia? Aristotle's philosophy revolves around one big question: what is the ultimate goal of human life? His answer: eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is often translated as happiness, but it actually means something deeper, a state of flourishing, fulfillment, and true well-being, living with purpose, excellence, and virtue, not just feeling good, but becoming the best version of yourself. For Aristotle, happiness is not a destination. It's a lifelong process of growth and self-improvement. Happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. Aristotle, unlike modern ideas of happiness, which often focus on pleasure or external success, Aristotle believed happiness comes from within, through daily habits, virtues, and character development. Happiness is not pleasure, It's excellence. Many people think happiness comes from money, fame, or pleasure, but Aristotle warned against this. Pleasure is temporary. It fades over time. Wealth is useful, but not an end goal. Success and status do not guarantee fulfillment. Instead, true happiness comes from developing good character and habits, finding purpose and meaning, striving for excellence in what you do. Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia is similar to modern psychology's idea of self-actualization, reaching your full potential and becoming the best version of yourself. Decay, golden mean, finding balance in life. Aristotle believed that virtue is the key to happiness. But how do we develop virtue? His answer, the golden mean. The golden mean is the idea that virtue lies between two extremes, not too much, not too little. For example, courage is a virtue, but too little courage, cowardice. Too much courage. Recklessness, generosity is a virtue, but too little, stinginess, too much wastefulness. Confidence is good, but too little, insecurity. Too much shoots to arrogance. Aristotle believed that living a balanced life leads to true happiness. This applies to modern life too. Work too much, you burn out. Work too little, you achieve nothing. Eat too much, you become unhealthy. Eat too little, you lack energy. Be too aggressive, you push people away. Be too passive, you get walked over. The key to happiness is finding balance in all aspects of life. Habit and character. Success is built daily. We are what we repeatedly do. One of Aristotle's most famous quotes, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Aristotle believed that success and happiness do not come from one-time actions. They come from daily habits and discipline. Want to be wise? Study and learn daily. Want to be healthy? Exercise and eat well consistently. Want to be successful? Work hard and improve every day. Your habits shape your character, and your character shapes your destiny. This is exactly what modern self-help books and productivity experts preach. Success comes from consistent effort, not motivation alone. The influence of Aristotle on modern psychology and self-development. Aristotle's teachings still shape how we think about success, happiness, and personal growth today. Aristotle and positive psychology. Modern psychology focuses on what makes people thrive. Aristotle was one of the first to explore this, and his ideas influenced Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Self-actualization, the highest level, is similar to Aristotle's eudaimonia. Flow state, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Achieving. Mastery and excellence in an activity mirrors Aristotle's idea of virtue and excellence. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, changing thought patterns to build better habits follows. Aristotle's belief in habitual excellence. 2. Aristotle and leadership. Aristotle's philosophy of virtue and balance is used in modern leadership training. Great leaders lead with wisdom, courage, and integrity. The golden mean applies in leadership. Too much control, dictatorship. Too little, chaos. The best leaders develop good habits. They are disciplined, fair, and focused. Aristotle's teachings are essential for personal and professional success. Final thoughts. Aristotle's timeless wisdom. Aristotle was not just a philosopher, he was a guide for how to live. Well, true happiness, eudaimonia, is about flourishing, not just pleasure. Success comes from balance, habits, and virtues. The key to a good life is continuous self-improvement and mastery. His teachings are still relevant today, used in psychology, leadership, self-help, and personal development. If Aristotle were alive today, he'd probably be a top motivational speaker, life coach, and author. His wisdom reminds us that a good life is built through daily effort, balance, and striving for excellence. Cynicism, the rebels of philosophy. If Aristotle was the first life coach guiding people towards self-improvement and excellence, then the Cynics were the ultimate rebels, rejecting society's rules, wealth, status, and even comfort itself. Cynicism is one of the most radical schools of philosophy, advocating for absolute freedom, self-sufficiency, and rejection of materialism. The Cynics lived outside the system, refusing to conform to societal norms and exposing the hypocrisy of the powerful. This chapter explores the origins of cynicism and its main thinkers, the lifestyle of the Cynics, why they rejected wealth and status, the teachings of Diogenes, the most extreme and famous Cynic, how cynicism influenced later philosophies like Stoicism, the modern impact of cynicism in today's world. Let's step into the world of the original philosophical rebels. The origins of cynicism, rejecting society's lies. Who were the Cynics? Cynicism was founded in ancient Greece by Antisthenes, a student of Socrates, in the 5th century BCE. But it was Diogenes of Sinope who became the most famous Cynic. The word cynic comes from the Greek kynikos, meaning dog-like. Why? Cynics lived like stray dogs, surviving on the streets with no possessions. They rejected wealth, comfort, and social norms. They mocked society's values, exposing them as false and corrupt. Their philosophy was brutally simple. Material wealth is meaningless. Power and status corrupt the soul. Nature provides everything we truly need. Happiness comes from radical self-sufficiency. Cynics did not care what people thought of them. They insulted the rich, mocked kings, and lived like homeless philosophers, challenging everyone around. Then, a wise man is self-sufficient. Antisthenes. Diogenes, the mad philosopher, the most famous Cynic, Diogenes of Sinope, 412–323 BCE, took cynicism to the extreme. He became a living symbol of rejecting society's illusions. The man who lived in a barrel, Diogenes owned nothing but a cloak, a wooden bowl, and a staff. He slept in a barrel instead of a house, proving that comfort was unnecessary. When he saw a child drinking water with his hands, he threw away his bowl, saying, "A child has outdone me in simplicity." He walked around Athens mocking the rich and powerful, exposing their hypocrisy. He believed most people were slaves to desires, obsessed with wealth, reputation, and power instead of true happiness. Diogenes versus Alexander the Great, the ultimate power move, one of the most legendary encounters in history. Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the world, came to see Diogenes. Alexander said, "Ask me for anything, and I shall grant it." Diogenes, lying in the sun, looked up and said, "Move! You're blocking my sunlight." Alexander's guards were shocked. No one dared speak to the king like that. But Alexander laughed and said, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." This moment captures the Cynic mindset. No respect for power, Diogenes treated the king like an ordinary man. Freedom over wealth. He needed nothing, not even the favor of a ruler. Happiness is self-sufficiency. Diogenes had no desires to be fulfilled. This is why Diogenes remains one of the most famous rebels in history. The key teachings of Cynicism: 1. Reject materialism. Wealth is an illusion. Cynics believed that money and luxury make people weak. The more you own, the more you are owned by your possessions. People work like slaves for money, but wealth doesn't bring happiness. True happiness is found in simplicity and self-sufficiency. Diogenes even went to the marketplace and laughed, saying, "Behold, so many things I do not need. Modern application. Many people today chase money, but research shows that after basic needs are met, more money doesn't increase happiness. Minimalism and simple living are inspired by this cynic idea. 2. Be completely independent. Rely on no one. Cynics believed in autarkia or self-sufficiency. Do not depend on society, government, or anyone for happiness. Rely on your own strength and wisdom. Avoid romantic attachments, politics, and social expectations. They make you a slave. Modern application. This influenced Stoicism, which teaches that happiness comes from inner strength, not external circumstances. Many successful people today emphasize self-reliance and mental toughness. 3. Challenge hypocrisy. Speak the harsh truth. Cynics were known for insulting and exposing society's lies. They mocked politicians and rich people who pretended to be virtuous. They insulted philosophers who only talked about wisdom instead of living it. They believed people should stop lying to themselves and face reality. Diogenes would walk through Athens with a lantern in broad daylight saying, "I am looking for an honest man." Modern application. Today, whistleblowers, truth-seekers, and anti-establishment thinkers follow this cynic tradition, exposing corruption and lies in politics, business, and media. The influence of cynicism on Stoicism. While cynicism was extreme, it inspired one of the greatest philosophies ever, Stoicism. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, was originally a student of cynicism. He softened the harshness of cynicism, keeping its ideas of inner freedom, self-discipline, and rejecting materialism. Stoicism took the radical rejection of external control and made it more practical for everyday life. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, the greatest Stoics, owe their ideas to the rebellious spirit of the cynics. Cynicism in the modern world today. Cynicism has taken on a negative meaning. People think of cynics as bitter, distrustful, or negative. But true ancient cynicism was about freedom, independence, and exposing illusions. Modern minimalists, living with fewer possessions, rejecting consumerism. Anti-establishment thinkers, questioning governments, media, and corporate power. Truth seekers, journalists, activists, and philosophers who expose corruption. Radical self-sufficiency, people who live off-grid, rejecting society's expectations. Cynicism still challenges the modern world, reminding us that money is not happiness, status is an illusion, freedom is worth more than comfort. Truth is more important than approval. Final thoughts. Why the cynics? Matter cynicism is a wake-up call to modern society. It reminds us that many of our desires are not real. They are programmed by society. Happiness does not come from wealth or status, but from independence. The world is full of lies, and we should always seek the harsh truth. Would you have the courage to live like a cynic? Though we may not sleep in barrels or insult kings, we can learn from cynicism. Live simply, be independent, question everything, seek truth, not approval. Cynicism is not about hating the world, it's about freeing yourself from its illusions. Epicureanism, the science of happiness. While the cynics rejected society through radical simplicity and rebellion, the Epicureans took a different path, one of pleasure, wisdom, and tranquility. Epicureanism is often misunderstood. Many think it promotes reckless indulgence in luxury, but in reality, it is a philosophy of balance, moderation, and simple joys. In this section, we will explore the origins of Epicureanism and its founder, Epicurus. What pleasure really means in Epicurean philosophy, why Epicureans rejected the fear of gods and death, the scientific and rational mindset of Epicureanism, how this philosophy influences modern happiness research. let's dive into one of the most misunderstood but scientifically relevant philosophies of all time. Who was Epicurus? The philosopher of happiness. The founder, Epicurus, 341-270 BCE. Epicurus was a Greek philosopher who believed that the purpose of life is to attain happiness through pleasure and the absence of pain. But unlike what many assume, he did not advocate for wild luxury, drinking, or excess. Instead, he taught that true pleasure is found in simplicity and wisdom. Fear and anxiety ruin happiness more than poverty does. Science and rationality free us from superstitions that make life miserable. He founded the Garden, a school of philosophy open to all people, including women and slaves, a rare thing in ancient Greece. Epicurus's goal: teach people to live without fear, anxiety, or unnecessary desires so they can enjoy a peaceful life. The core ideas of Epicureanism. Happiness comes from simple pleasures. Epicurus believed that the best life is a simple one, free from unnecessary luxury and stress. Eating a basic meal with friends brings more happiness than a feast full of stress. A simple life avoids the burdens of wealth and power. True pleasure is calm, long-lasting, and free from guilt or pain. Example, imagine two people. One chases luxury, stress, and endless ambition. The other enjoys simple meals, good company, and inner peace. Epicurus believed the second person is far happier. 2. Overcome fear. The gods don't control your fate. Most ancient people lived in fear of the gods, believing they controlled everything. Epicurus taught that the gods exist but don't interfere in human life. Nature, not divine punishment, controls the world. If we understand science, we stop fearing the unknown. Example, thunder was once seen as a god's anger. Epicurus said, "No, it's a natural phenomenon." Understanding it removes fear and superstition. His ideas later influenced modern secularism and scientific thinking. 3. Death is nothing to fear. Epicurus had a famous answer to the fear of death. Death is nothing to us. When we are alive, death is not there. When we are dead, we don't feel anything. So, why fear something that we will never experience? Modern application. Many psychologists today use Epicurean thinking to help people cope with fear of death and anxiety about the unknown. 4. Choose friendships over fame and wealth. Epicurus believed that friendship is the greatest source of happiness. Wealth and fame bring stress and fake relationships. A simple life, surrounded by trustworthy friends, is far more fulfilling. True happiness comes from people, not possessions. Example, a billionaire with no real friends is less happy than a modest worker who laughs with friends every day. 5. Science and reason lead to peace. Epicurus believed that science and rational thinking free us from fear and suffering. Superstitions create fear, but understanding reality removes it. Many things that cause anxiety, like natural disasters or disease, have scientific explanations. The best way to live is by understanding nature, not fearing it. Modern connection. Epicurus's scientific mindset influenced the Age of Enlightenment, modern physics, and psychology. Epicureanism versus hedonism. What's the difference? Epicureanism is often confused with hedonism, but they are not the same. Epicureanism, hedonism, moderation and balance, indulgence and excess pleasure. Long-term peace. Pleasure, monkeys, short-term thrills, avoids pain and regret. Chases pleasure at any cost, prefers simple, natural joys, seeks intense luxury and excitement. Epicureans were about smart pleasure, avoiding excess that leads to pain. How Epicureanism influences modern science and happiness research today. Psychologists and neuroscientists confirm many Epicurean ideas. Happiness is more about avoiding stress than chasing wealth. Quality relationships bring more fulfillment than money. Understanding science reduces anxiety and fear of the unknown. Modern applications: minimalism, living simply, free from material desires. Mindfulness and Stoicism, finding joy in everyday life. Scientific skepticism, questioning superstitions with rational thought. Final thoughts: why Epicureanism matters. Today, Epicureanism is a timeless philosophy for happiness. It teaches us that luxury is not necessary for joy. Fear of gods, death, and the unknown is useless. True pleasure is calm, simple, and sustainable. Science and reason bring peace of mind. Would you be happier if you embraced Epicurean simplicity? Instead of chasing status and stress, maybe we should spend more time with good friends, stop fearing things beyond our control, enjoy simple, meaningful pleasures. Epicurus' message is clear. Happiness is simpler than we think. Eastern wisdom, Stoicism's cousins. While Stoicism shaped much of Western thought on resilience and virtue, Eastern philosophies developed their own parallel ideas, often with striking similarities. In this section, we will explore the common themes between Stoicism and Eastern wisdom: Buddhism, detachment and mastery over suffering; Taoism, going with the flow and accepting nature; Confucianism, discipline, virtue, and harmony. How these philosophies connect to modern Stoicism. Let's begin by exploring the philosophical cousins of Stoicism from the East. Similarities between Stoicism and Eastern philosophies. Although Stoicism developed in ancient Greece and Rome, and Eastern traditions emerged in India and China, they share key themes. Concept: Stoicism, Eastern philosophy: control over emotions. Master your emotions to stay rational. Inner peace through detachment, suffering and acceptance. Accept suffering. Focus on virtue. Suffering is caused by desire. Buddhism, harmony with nature. Live according to nature's laws, flow with nature's way. Taoism, virtue and discipline. Train yourself in wisdom and virtue. Self-cultivation through ethics. Confucianism, death and impermanence. Accept death as natural. Everything is impermanent. Buddhism. Let's now explore each of these philosophies in depth. Buddhism, detachment and mastery over suffering. Buddhism, founded by Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, around 500 BCE in India, teaches that suffering, dukkha, is caused by desire. Core similarity to Stoicism. Both Buddhism and Stoicism teach detachment from external things to achieve inner peace. The Four Noble Truths. The core of Buddhism. Buddhism is based on four key ideas. Suffering exists. Life is full of pain and struggles. Desire causes suffering. We suffer because we crave things. Detachment ends suffering. By letting go of cravings, we find peace. The Eightfold Path. A disciplined way of life leads to wisdom. Stoic connection. The Stoics, like Epictetus, taught that external things, wealth, reputation, power, are not under our control, and that freedom comes from mastering our desires. 2. Meditation and mindfulness. Buddhists use meditation to cultivate awareness and acceptance. Mindfulness, observing thoughts without attachment. Equanimity, staying calm no matter what happens. Stoic connection. Marcus Aurelius meditated daily on acceptance and gratitude. Epictetus taught that we should observe our emotions, not react impulsively. Both Buddhism and Stoicism emphasize self-awareness as the key to wisdom. Taoism, going with the flow of nature. Taoism, founded by Laozi, 6th century BCE, China, teaches that the best way to live is to follow the flow of nature, the Tao. Core similarity to Stoicism. Both Taoism and Stoicism teach acceptance of life's natural rhythms instead of resisting them. The Tao, the way of nature. The Tao means the way, the natural flow of the universe. Wu Wei, effortless action. Instead of forcing things, we should adapt and go with the flow. Stoic connection. Epictetus taught that resisting fate only creates suffering. The Stoic concept of amor fati, love of fate, is similar to Wu Wei, where we accept life as it unfolds instead of fighting against it. 2. Simplicity and non-attachment. Taoists believe that chasing status, wealth, or rigid rules leads to suffering. True peace comes from living simply. Power and ambition cause unnecessary struggles. Stoic connection. Seneca lived modestly despite being rich. Marcus Aurelius warned against excessive ambition. Both Stoicism and Taoism see luxury and status as distractions from wisdom. Confucianism, discipline. Virtue and harmony. Confucianism, founded by Confucius, 551-479 BCE, China, focuses on ethics, social harmony, and self-discipline. Core similarity to Stoicism. Both Confucianism and Stoicism emphasize virtue, discipline, and ethical leadership. The 5 virtues of Confucianism. Confucius taught that a person should cultivate Ren, compassion, kindness and empathy. Li, rituals and discipline, practicing good habits. Yi, justice and integrity, doing what is right. Zhi, wisdom, learning from experience. Xin, trustworthiness, being reliable and honest. Stoic connection. Stoics valued virtue, arete, as the only true good. The 4 Stoic virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, are almost identical to Confucian ideals. 2. Duty and social responsibility. Confucius believed that people should serve society and family, not just themselves. A leader should govern with wisdom and morality. Stoic connection. Marcus Aurelius viewed leadership as a moral duty. Seneca believed that wealth should be used to help society. Both Stoicism and Confucianism teach that character, not status, defines a great person. Modern connections. Eastern wisdom in today's world today. Many of these ideas are deeply embedded in modern psychology and self-improvement. Mindfulness and Stoicism. Modern therapy uses both Stoic cognitive reframing and Buddhist meditation for emotional resilience. Taoist adaptability. The idea of going with the flow is widely used in stress management. Confucian ethics. Many leadership courses teach ethical leadership, discipline, and wisdom based on Confucian ideas. Key takeaway. Stoicism and Eastern philosophies arrived at the same conclusions through different cultural lenses. Stoicism, rational control over emotions. Buddhism, letting go of desires. Taoism, flowing with nature. Confucianism, virtuous, self-discipline. They all teach us how to live well, even in the modern world. Final thoughts. West meets East. Although Stoicism and Eastern philosophies developed independently, they mirror each other in surprising ways. Both focus on self-mastery and inner peace. Both teach that desire and attachment cause suffering. Both see virtue and wisdom as the key to happiness. Would a mix of Stoicism and Eastern thought help us live better today? In our stressful, fast-paced world, maybe we need Stoic resilience to handle challenges with logic, Buddhist detachment to stop chasing unnecessary desires, Taoist flexibility to go with the flow of life, Confucian discipline, Nariti to act with wisdom and integrity. By blending these philosophies, we may find a more balanced, fulfilling way to live. Would you agree? Skepticism. The philosophy of doubt. Throughout history, humans have sought truth. But what if certainty itself is an illusion? Skepticism challenges us to question everything, even our own beliefs. In this section, we'll explore: what is skepticism? Doubt as a path to wisdom. Ancient Greek skeptics, Pyrrho and Sextus. Empiricus, Cartesian skepticism. Descartes as radical doubt. Modern scientific skepticism. How skepticism shapes science today. The limitations of skepticism. Can doubt go too far? Skepticism isn't about rejecting everything. It's about questioning assumptions to get closer to the truth. Let's dive in. What is skepticism? At its core, skepticism is the belief that we should question knowledge, perceptions, and beliefs. Certainty is hard or impossible to achieve. The best approach is open-minded doubt. Key Stoic connection. Even Stoics like Epictetus advised questioning what we assume to be true, though they believed some things, like virtue, were certain. There are three major branches of skepticism. Philosophical skepticism questions whether knowledge is possible. Scientific skepticism demands evidence for claims. Religious skepticism questions divine or supernatural beliefs. Let's start with ancient Greek skepticism, where it all began. Ancient Greek skepticism. The first doubters won. Pyrrho of Elis, c. 360 to 270 BCE. The first skeptic, Pyrrho, traveled to India and studied Buddhist philosophy, which influenced his skepticism. He argued that since nothing can be known for certain, the best response is ataraxia, a state of calm detachment. Key idea: suspend judgment. Since we can't be sure of anything, we should stop making firm conclusions. This leads to inner peace as we stop worrying about truth altogether. Comparison to Stoicism. Stoics sought certainty and virtue, while Pyrrho argued that even virtue is uncertain. Both philosophies aimed for tranquility, but Stoics embraced rationalism, while Pyrrho embraced doubt. 2. Sextus Empiricus, 2nd century CE, radical. Skepticism. Sextus Empiricus expanded on Pyrrho's ideas, promoting radical skepticism. He questioned everything, including logic, senses, and science itself. His works influenced later skeptics like Descartes, Hume, and Nietzsche. Key idea: we can't trust our senses. Our eyes can be deceived, optical illusions. Our memory is unreliable. Our reasoning is full of biases. Comparison to Buddhism and Taoism. Like Buddhism, skepticism teaches detachment from rigid beliefs. Like Taoism, it suggests going with the flow instead of seeking certainty. But can we live without certainty? That's where modern skepticism comes in. Cartesian skepticism. Descartes' radical doubt in the 17th century. René Descartes, 1596-1650, took skepticism to its extreme. He doubted everything, even his own existence. He asked, what if an evil demon is deceiving me? His breakthrough, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Key idea: we must start from absolute certainty. Descartes argued that the only thing we can't doubt is that we are thinking. From there, he rebuilt knowledge logically. Impact inspired modern philosophy and rationalism. influenced skeptical inquiry in science, Descartes showed that radical doubt can lead to stronger reasoning, a foundation for modern skepticism. Modern scientific skepticism, doubt as a tool today. Skepticism is a cornerstone of science. Scientific skepticism says extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Carl Sagan. It rejects superstition, pseudoscience, and conspiracy theories. It promotes critical thinking and rational inquiry. Examples of scientific skepticism: flat earth theory, proven wrong by science. Astrology and homeopathy, no scientific basis. Conspiracy theories often rely on emotional biases, not evidence. Impact on modern thought encourages fact-checking and empirical evidence, helps avoid scams, misinformation, and cognitive biases, empowers rational decision-making, but can skepticism go too far? With the limitations of skepticism when doubt becomes paralysis. If we question everything, can we believe in anything at all? Hyperskepticism can lead to nihilism, believing that nothing matters. We must find a balance, healthy doubt without rejecting all knowledge. Key takeaway: skepticism should challenge weak ideas, but not prevent us from forming strong, reasoned beliefs. The final thoughts: doubt as a path to wisdom. Skepticism is not about rejecting everything. It's about questioning intelligently. Ancient skeptics showed us that absolute certainty is impossible. Descartes used doubt to build stronger knowledge. Science uses skepticism to test reality and find truth. How can we apply skepticism today? Question media, advertisements, and political claims. Avoid blind faith in authority. Even in science, use reason, evidence, and logic to guide decisions. When used wisely, skepticism is one of the most powerful tools for truth. Would you agree? Legacy. Why ancient philosophy still matters. Philosophy isn't just ancient history. It's alive in our thoughts, decisions, and society. The wisdom of Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Stoics, cynics, skeptics, and existentialists continues to shape how we think, live, and navigate life's biggest questions. In this final section, we'll explore how ancient philosophy influences modern thinking, the impact on psychology, science, politics, and personal growth. Why philosophy is more relevant than ever. Let's reflect on why the teachings of the past still guide us today. Ancient philosophy and modern thinking. Philosophy doesn't just live in books, it lives in action. Many of today's ideas about morality, logic, democracy, and happiness come directly from ancient thinkers. How ancient philosophies influence us today. Ethics and morality. Socrates' method of questioning still shapes law and justice. Personal development. Stoicism's emphasis on resilience is popular in self-improvement. Politics and society. Aristotle's ideas on democracy laid the groundwork for modern governments. Science and rationalism. Skepticism fuels the scientific method. Freedom and meaning. Existentialism inspires individual purpose in a chaotic world. Ancient philosophy isn't dead knowledge. It's the foundation of modern civilization. Namivias philosophy and psychology. Understanding human nature. Many psychological principles have roots in philosophy. Stoic cognitive reframing. Modern cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Socratic questioning. Therapy techniques. For self-exploration, Aristotle's virtue ethics. Foundations of positive psychology, existentialism. Influences on mental health, anxiety, and finding meaning. Key takeaway: ancient wisdom helps us understand our emotions, behaviors, and mental well-being. Science and skepticism. The roots of rational inquiry. Would science exist without skepticism? The scientific method is built on philosophical skepticism, questioning assumptions and testing ideas. Einstein, Hawking, and modern physicists were influenced by Greek logic and thought experiments. Quantum mechanics even touches on paradoxes first discussed by ancient philosophers. Key takeaway: the philosophical mindset of doubt, inquiry, and reason drives scientific progress. Politics and democracy. The power of ideas. Plato, Aristotle, and the Stoics laid the groundwork for modern political systems. Plato's Republic influenced political idealism. Aristotle's politics shaped democracy and governance. Stoic ideas of universal rights inspired concepts of human rights. Key takeaway: without philosophy, modern democracy and law wouldn't exist. Personal growth. Philosophy as a life guide. Why do Stoicism, cynicism, and existentialism remain popular? They offer real-life guidance for modern struggles. They help us handle suffering, uncertainty, and change. They teach us how to think critically and live with purpose. Examples in modern life: Stoicism for resilience in stress and failure. Existentialism for finding meaning in a chaotic world. Skepticism for questioning media and misinformation. Philosophy isn't just about knowledge, it's about wisdom. Why philosophy matters more than ever. In an age of distraction, misinformation, and crisis, we need ancient philosophy's clarity and wisdom more than ever. Social media and information overload. Philosophy helps us think critically. Anxiety and stress epidemic. Stoicism teaches resilience. Political conflicts and division. Socratic questioning promotes open dialogue. Loss of meaning. Existentialism helps us create our own purpose. Final takeaway: ancient philosophy isn't just relevant, it's necessary for a balanced, thoughtful life. Would you agree? You said last paragraph call to action. ChatGPT said, philosophy isn't just an academic subject, it's a guide for living. Whether you seek resilience, wisdom, or deeper meaning, the teachings of ancient philosophers can transform your perspective on life. So why not embrace their wisdom? Start questioning, start thinking, and most importantly, start applying philosophy to your daily life. What ancient philosophy resonates with you the most? Let's continue the conversation.